Welcome back to the Djellab channel, ladies and gentlemen. And this time, instead of the top six, it is the top four. Joining me today, to my right, I think on your left, by what looks of watching it, JCC. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Yeah, great. Fantastic intro. Thanks for that.
I've done this for so long, mate. It doesn't matter how I do it anymore. And on the other side, in the blue corner, Joe Thomlinson. How are you doing?
Which side am I sat on if you're looking at
it? You're on the left. You're on the left here. You're on the left.
Yeah. Good, mate. Yeah, thank you. Very good to be here.
Amazing. And on the right hand of the blue corner, Michael McCubbin. Back again.
Back again. I think this is my first appearance on
the
this,
top four.
on
Yes,
top four.
on the channel. No,
on the chat, not on the channel. Not on the channel. No, I have been. I've been kind of part of the furniture on the channel recently. So yeah, glad to be back. Yeah, not tired of it just yet. But
good,
we'll
good, great furniture indeed. Now, of course, this is the week of the Champions League. It has returned. Some big games. Liverpool versus AC Milan. A few other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head. But we are going to discuss all things Champions League. All of our predictions will be said on this video as we go out. However, things are going to change a little bit. There's no points awarded anymore. I'm now involved in the conversation. And at the end of the video, in the comments below, you guys can like one of the comments that I've left on who you think was the best, who debated the best, who made the best points by liking the comment with their name. Okay, guys, without further ado, let's crack on. Okay, the question for this one, is Bayern Munich underrated or overrated? Are they underrated or overrated? Bayern Munich. As you can see, guys, I forgot the whiteboards. I left them at home. I will not forget next time. All right, lads, without further ado, let's show ours to the camera. Oh, two overrated, two underrated.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a bit mad.
I've spoken a lot already. Mikey, why don't you kick things off?
I just think there are better teams out there. I think in some ways, I can see why you're saying underrated. That they've got a bit of a rookie manager in place in terms of Vincent Kompany, hasn't managed it in the European Cup before. I get that, but equally, we're looking at a Bayern Munich side that are still star-studded. They've got Harry Kane, still scoring for fun, and I think the expectation is there for them to, make it to the semis at least once again. And I just think there are better squads out there. I think there are better teams out there. I think Real Madrid are better than them. I think Arsenal are better than them. I think Man City are better than them. I think PSG are going to be real contenders this season under Luis Enrique. I think they've had a great start to the season too. I look at Bayern Munich and I think, they've had a decent start to the season, unbeaten so far, but that defence still looks pretty leaky. I don't think Kompany sorted out the defence. I don't think they're much better attacking-wise than they were last season, and they're yet to be tested yet. And I just think, I think we could, in some of the bigger clashes in the group stage, I think we could see them look a bit more vulnerable.
But does that not make them underrated then? I feel like what you're saying is everyone thinks they're maybe going to go out quite early. A lot of teams are better than them. However, this is a Bayern Munich side who had this criticism last year and did pretty well against Arsenal. They did manage to, especially in the knockout competition, they've got one really experienced players.
I think that was what my point was going to be, is that I understand on paper the squad does look quite strong, doesn't it? But I still think people are looking at the Vincent Kompany appointment and the fact that they lost the league last year to Leverkusen and had one of their worst seasons in a decade, arguably. As people are saying, well, they've taken a step back this season, haven't they? I just don't see them challenging at all. I think a lot of the narrative around Bayern Munich is very negative right now. Whereas I actually still think they've got a lot of players in that squad that are capable of winning major games on big moments alone. I think we saw that against Arsenal last season. There's no doubt Arsenal were a better side than Bayern Munich last season. But Bayern Munich found the way of getting over the line. I think they'll do the same this year. I think Bayern Munich will get to the semi-finals, maybe even beyond.
I just think it's difficult when Bayern Munich got to the semi-finals last year because Thomas Tuchel is great in those situations as well, right? I don't know. I think Vincent Kompany is potentially.
You're not having company, mate. You're not having company then. You're not having company.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I just think. I'm not saying that he's a terrible manager, and I think people laughed at his appointment, but actually, I think with the kind of squad that he's got now, I think he's going to have more success than he had with. It's a better suited job to him than Burnley was in the Premier League when they'd lost so many key players from the year before. I don't think Kompany's bad, but I just think is Kompany does Kompany have the same level of tactical expertise in tournament football? Like, no way. Like, no way does he does it at
totally
knockout football. And I think without Tuchel last year, I don't think Bayern do get through that quarter-final with Arsenal. So then you're thinking, like, is this Bayern Munich team even good enough to get to the semi-finals? I'm not so sure. Not if they come up against a really top side before that.
Completely agree. And I think also the manager point, we all know Kompany got relegated with Burnley. Palhinha has come from Fulham, spent a lot of money on him. Elise has come from Palace, spent a lot of money on him, no European experience. Harry Kane has never won a trophy. Where does it, when the chips are down in the Champions League and they've got Real Madrid in the quarter-final and you're looking around that changing room, who's the player, who's the manager with experience, not Kompany? Who's the player with the experience in that situation? Maybe aging Kimmich and Thomas Muller, but they're looking around and thinking like this is not a dressing room right now full of winners. An amazing squad, amazing future. I think some of their young players are amazing,
I think
but they're just not.
I think they've signed difference makers in the summer. I think Palhinha
enough to win a Champions League.
I think not necessarily to win it, but to go very deep. I think Palhinha in big games, in big moments, will be a huge difference maker for that Bayern Munich midfield over what we were seeing last year.
When have we
whereas
seen that?
Leon Goretzka, Pavlovic having to be thrown in the deep end. Kimmich, is he playing right back? I think Palhinha makes a major difference in big moments.
Palhinha's a destroyer. Palhinha at Fulham was a destroyer, and I just don't see him.
They were really bad.
Palhinha is amazing.
Year,
I'm a Fulham fan. He's one of my favourite all-time Fulham players, and he spent 2 years there, so it says a lot. But I just think in terms of a European Cup semi-final away at the Bernabeu, Palhinha hasn't proven enough in his career to step up and be that player to go, oh, I'm going to change the game here. And then Harry Kane is famously known for not winning anything, and we can sit there and smile at that and be, oh, this and that, but it means something. It means something. He doesn't know how to win. He doesn't know how to win.
You can only have those titles until you've actually first have the chance to do it. Like Palhinha, for instance, never really had a time to be able to showcase this, where he might light it up in the Champions League.
He's played for Portugal in big games. He's never been a letdown.
Portugal,
but my point is Palhinha's not that midfielder. Like, he's not going to grab the ball, run and score a goal or do something.
I think genuinely Elise could be. We're talking about someone
but he's not
who is looks generational. He looks incredible. And we've got Musiala there, who's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
We can't sit here.
There's a lot of variables. There are a lot of variables. What I will say is that Palhinha, massive pressure on him because this is the last big move, realistically the last big move of his career. Harry Kane, obviously, this is this going to Bayern Munich was the last big move of his career. Huge pressure on him to win trophies. And then Michael Elise, who knows when he'll get injured, if or when he'll get injured at some point this season. I just think that there are a lot of variables there, and I do think that the Harry Kane not winning anything, that narrative is it's always going to be brought up, and I think it is unfair on him. But equally, there's so much pressure on him, especially you're having not won anything last year with Bayern, that I do think that there is huge pressure on them going to games, even if they go into a game as underdogs in the Champions League quarterfinals, they come up against Real Madrid. There's more pressure on them because Real Madrid are a younger team. They've got so many years ahead of them. They've got so much going for them. You could say the same about Arsenal. You could probably say the same about City as well because they've just won so much in the last few years. Bayern, there is so much heat on them, especially with the kind of relatively new hierarchy that's in place there, that they need to prove themselves, prove that the transfer policy is working. I think they're under immense pressure.
Do you think then if they don't lift the trophy, it's a failure?
No, I don't think at all. But I think the minimum expectation is always semi-finals, and I have my doubts whether they can get there.
I have my doubts they can win the league. They didn't win it last year, and they've got a worse manager. Yeah. So let's stop pretending they're going to win a Champions League, because there's no chance. Not a chance.
I think I can see them getting to the semis. I think they've got a good enough squad to have done that. And to me,
that's
a good achievement.
History matters.
That would make them, in my point,
history does matter.
Underachievers. Yeah. Okay, lads. Well, again, make sure you guys at home keep that in mind for when you're going to be voting at the end of the video. Our next one, guys, Aston Villa, overrated or underrated?
Really depends on what the expectations are actually with Villa, to be honest.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
Ooh.
Overrated 2,
nice.
Underrated 2.
Yep.
Blue versus red here.
Okay, here we go.
Can I quickly start off?
How can you go overrated? How can you... who's overrating Villa?
True. Very true. As in, we've not seen...
we've not
seen... But I just think...
I can argue that, though.
But I just think... I think last season, for instance... I remember when Newcastle had made it to the Champions League, and we were all thinking, these boys are going to make an impact. They've got some fantastic players.
I swear we all put them down to go out of the Champions League group stage.
did. I'm trying to think back to the video.
They had a group of
Yeah,
death.
I did it.
They did have a group of death. And
I think a lot of us
this,
put them
and this
third.
is a very different scenario
Yeah.
now for Villa. I just think, like, basically what I'm saying is I don't think they make it past. I don't think they make it past the first stage of the Champions
they'll
League.
make it past the
I don't know. I think they will.
Just the
You
way
th-
that
you don't
just-
think they will?
Just
No, I
the-
think they will.
Just the way
You
the
think they will?
format lays
See, I
out,
don't
they
think
will.
they will.
Just the way the format lays out, they will. Given that the two, like the qualifying round, even if they don't finish in the top 8 of the stage, like there's so many opportunities for them to do damage in this.
Well, at least
layout
not
format.
through that top third. Then not through that top third.
Yeah, that,
Like
I agree. They're probably not going to be one of the 8 best teams in the
Because
competition.
I just wonder
but
that, like, this is a for all of the basically all of their players apart from Isaac, maybe Kamara, Carlos. If he, sorry, not Isaac. I'm thinking of Aston. I'm thinking of Newcastle. Sorry, apart from Bailey, Kamara, and maybe Diego Carlos. They're the only ones with Champions League experience.
what does it do?
That's right.
So
That's fine.
I think
Which
most of the
like,
teams have got no Champions League
you asked
experience.
initially-
Yeah, but that makes a big difference. I think that makes a big difference.
But
I
they've
think
got a
sometimes
manager
we
with like huge European pedigree.
yes, huge
That's my
Europa
biggest-
League.
that's my problem.
Europa League.
That's
What do you
your,
mean
'cause that's
by
your
that?
strongest point. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are leaning on that. And it's like, well, he hasn't got any in the Champions League, really. He's done it in the Europa League and he's the best of all time. But this is the Champions League, which he's notoriously failed in. He's notorious for getting knocked out early. And that's why I went with over, because I think there's this sort of impression that everyone's like, oh yeah, Villa, they've won a European Cup in their history, and we spoke about how that matters with Bayern Munich. It definitely matters. And there's this narrative of they've got this European manager, they've got this amazing squad. I think all things are true, and for that reason I put them in overrated, because I think no one's sitting here, I'm not sitting here and saying anyone's ever said Villa are going to win it, but I think there's a real chance that they don't make it out of that first stage. And if they don't, I personally wouldn't say that's a failure, but I think everyone else would. And I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean. I think the only thing I'd say to that is that until last season, I think, this time last year, everyone was saying that Villa would absolutely smash the Conference League, and they messed that one up, didn't they?
did.
Yeah.
And so I do think maybe expectations are a bit lower now, especially the fact that it's, big Champions League format as well. The 2 extra games, at least 2 extra games in the groups or in the league format. And then the fact that, this is their first time playing in it for however many years, or first time ever playing the Champions League, I think, for Villa.
Not European Cup.
Yeah, so like, I think there's always, people are going to temper their expectations, and that's a lot of games, isn't it? Especially when they're also going to be going for top 4 in the league too. But I do think they've got a really deep squad, Villa. I think they're really, really
They're so
strong.
deep.
Their depth,
But let's
like
say-
the way that their attackers have started the season, the fact that like John Duran, 3 winners is it already?
Yes.
Meant that Ollie Watkins could take a little while to find
But
his
let's
shooting.
also add like one of them's a screamer. Like
Yeah,
That's a
but
big
but
difference.
it's still,
Scoring the
Champions
goals,
League is
isn't it?
about moments.
but when he's up against a lot of like
But
he's
he
up
might-
against, he's
he's
against
not even-
Everton,
but he's
who
not
are
even
relegation
necess-
fodder.
He's
right
not
now.
even necessarily
Like,
a starter.
No, I know, right? But I guess the other point for me, we saw last season happened to Newcastle quite badly, was
They had
There's
no
adding
depth
extra
though.
games.
They had
They didn't
zero
have no
depth, and they
depth.
had
But the
the
second you
whole
lose
squad was
say you lose
riddled with
Watkins.
injuries
But I
from
agree.
the
Yeah,
start.
Kamara was riddled with injuries last season. Like he's
Yeah, but Villa have a much
midfield.
deeper squad than Newcastle.
I
had
agree
going
with
into
They
that,
the
by
do,
the way.
Champions
they
League last
do.
year.
I agree with
But
that.
all
I
it
agree.
takes is 2 injuries, 3 injuries, and then suddenly you go, "Oh, that depth isn't
But
there."
I don't necessarily agree.
I don't think it's a thing to
There's
do
a lot
with
of
depth,
games
Zach.
now they're going to be
If
playing, man.
I don't think
We've
it's
got
to do
we've got
with depth.
players in that squad that like, we haven't even seen get a sniff yet, who were some of the best players in the Champions League last season. Ian Maatsen was a contender for the Champions League team in the season. Doesn't even start in this Villa squad right now over Luka Dean. They've got one of the best goalkeepers in Europe in Emi Martinez, who's done it and proven he can do it on the biggest stages in the world in World Cup finals. I think throughout the midfield they've got depth, young depth as well, that I think is much more malleable.
Who
than some
have
of
not played in this kind of level. When
Can
they
I
are
just add,
playing,
Joe's...
like,
Joe, your
But
points
they
are
still
all
played
true.
at a level good enough to make it into the Champions League, to finish higher than the likes of Spurs, the likes of Newcastle, the likes of Man United in the
You're
Premier League.
captain teams in the Champions League.
Joe, these points, everything you're saying is true, and that's why I've got them in the overrated bracket. Because you add to it the history of Villa Park and Aston Villa, you add to it the European pedigree and the manager. If they don't get to a quarter-final with this narrative, I don't think...
No, a
come
quarter-final.
on.
Aston Villa
Quarterfinals are
fans,
big,
You're
Aston
saying
Villa
they're not gonna
fans,
get out of
Aston
the
Villa
group.
fans,
Quarterfinals are big.
Aston Villa fans aren't sitting there saying this. I don't think Aston Villa fans expect to get there, but I think from the narrative that's been written, it's like they've got this amazing European manager, they've got this huge squad, they've got
And that will be enough to
these
get them out of the
exciting
group.
players.
Yeah.
So what is getting out the group?
That's the
and
aim.
then
I think
going
that's
out?
definitely
the
good
aim.
Okay,
That's
so
the aim.
do you
I
think-
personally
last
just think that
year.
you made
That's
the
the aim,
argument
man.
for them being
So
overrated.
I would say Aston Villa beat Young Boys. Check.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aston Villa don't beat Bayern Munich
Probably not.
Is it at, where is it?
at Villa Park.
I think they could snatch a draw.
Close. We've seen them go there and absolutely dominate Manchester City last season, and that was the best team in the world at that point.
It's a different setup.
A lot of your points, I agree with. I back a lot of your points. They are a brilliant team. Like they are good. But that's why I think
Bologna. Without Bologna, have lost their 2 best players.
They beat Club Brugge, Juve, who are back on the up. Leipzig, who are not away at Leipzig, is not an easy game. Away at Monaco, and then at home to Celtic.
But they only need to get three wins from the group stage game to go into that top. 9 points is going to be enough to put you into the top.
I just think the way I've spoken to people about Aston Villa, I think the perception is they're going to do a lot better than what I think. As in, like, I think they might get through. But after that,
everything that you're arguing is my reason why they're overrated. You're looking through those things and you're going, oh, Aston Villa away at Bayern, they could snatch a draw there. Why? Based off what?
They could definitely. Well, at home to Bayern,
Bayern Munich are recent European giants. Aston Villa are not far off fighting relegation.
I watched Manchester City go a few years ago. I watched Man City go to Villa Park last year. Villa played them off the park. Man City, I think, had put up the lowest
Villa
XG
dominated Arsenal the other week.
Team in Europe.
Yeah, I understand.
Look at what Newcastle did to PSG at St James's Park last year.
I sometimes feel like we over praise English teams, and then they actually sometimes this is, I guess, maybe looking more back at last season's Champions League, because before that
Newcastle.
Did pretty well.
What happened when PSG went to St James's Park?
One game. Yeah, one game. What happened to the rest of the games for them?
But that
not great, but
in the group of death.
Sure.
And they were very narrow, some of those games, weren't they?
I just think...
Yeah, and also, it doesn't really matter. If Bayern Munich go and smash Villa at Villa Park,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't even really matter that much.
Group.
I think they'll get out. I do think they'll get out of the group, but I just think if you have to ask me which way it swings, I think there's this narrative that you both have perfectly articulated of like Aston Villa are so ready for this competition. They've got everything in place, and for that reason...
I just think it takes one injury, man.
I just think it takes one injury, it takes one bad game.
Watkins.
Then John Duran comes in.
Okay, and John Duran's great for when he's playing in the last couple of minutes of the game, and there's been a
we've
seen okay, but we've also not seen him start a game.
We have seen him start a game. Scored a goal
and being great. No, we haven't. Last season and this season, him starting a game and with no Watkins there, it's not happened.
Well, he was starting and scoring games in the Conference League.
I don't agree.
We're in the Champions League now, mate. Different.
Their squad is good enough. They have a good enough squad. I think they have a good enough squad. Of course, but that's not my point.
A couple of injuries. And
you yourself right now are underrated.
I also think that then no one's expecting them to get to the quarterfinals.
No.
I don't think anyone.
I wouldn't say quarterfinals.
I think just on the even when we look at English teams' performance in the Champions League in general. Over the last couple of years, not been amazing, let's face it.
No.
I don't think anyone's expecting 4 English teams to get to the quarterfinals, and if they are, it's going to be, if English teams are going to get to the quarterfinals and beyond, it's going to be Liverpool, Arsenal, and City. I don't think anyone's expecting all 4 English teams.
Okay.
I think Villa. I think Villa are easily good enough to get.
The league, get out of the table, get to the knockout stage. All right, lads. Our third team for overrated and underrated, Barcelona. 2 overrateds, 2 underrateds.
Love
again.
it.
Yeah. Good quality content. John, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I mean, they've obviously had a perfect start to the season. So many problems behind the scenes, but Hansi Flick is a brilliant manager who won he won every trophy available at Bayern in one season. So they've got the manager in place. They've got some of the players in place now. Yamal, off the back of winning the Euros, looks incredible. There's players coming back from injuries. I know Olmo just did his hamstring, but apparently it's only 4 or 5 weeks, so he'll be back. And I think Barcelona are a bit of a mess of a club off the pitch, but like we said a few times in this video, history counts in this competition, and they are a historic club. I believe they're back at the new camp as well now, playing. I think they obviously missed games there, or it was under construction. They're going to have a full new camp, and I just, based off the start to the season, 5 games, 5 wins, I think you have to look at it and think, a lot of people look at Barcelona as a bit of a shambles in the recent years in the Champions League, and now I don't think they are.
Yeah,
I do. Of course.
I do.
I don't know, man. I think especially with the
average fan thinks Barcelona's a
I was
shambles.
shocked when I saw they'd won all 5 games of the season. Put it that way. I was like, they've won all 5.
But I think the narrative very quickly changes with Barcelona, and I think a perfect start like that under a new manager, especially now, them having hired a manager who's a little bit different from what they're used to, not Spanish, no previous connection to the club. It feels like on the pitch, it feels like there's been a reset, and Yamal off the back of the Euros, Pedri back in the side, Lewandowski in form. Kubasi, playing brilliantly at the back. I think there's lots of reasons for people to be like, you know what, actually, this could be a thing. They're playing really good football. I think the expectation is really high, but I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. I think across the whole season, I still think the deep areas of midfield are a problem for Barcelona.
Frankie will come back though.
But Frankie's never held it down as a lone six for Barcelona.
Yeah, agreed.
In his Barca career, maybe under Flick, but like a number of managers have not been able to get the best out of him as a lone six, and I do worry that their inability to find a proper replacement there will come back to bite them.
Like, where do you think Barca would finish?
In the top 8.
So quarterfinals.
Well, does that guarantee you a spot in the court? No, it doesn't, does it?
No, sorry. I'm saying, no, as in...
This new
I love how no one actually knows the
No, sorry. I thought you meant the
It's
final
such a
8
mess.
teams. Like, where do you think Barcelona will end up this season?
I think quarterfinals is very, very realistic.
But then I think a lot of fans think, like... Barca fans especially think they should be going far in the
but
competition.
Barca fans are like the most deluded fan base in world football, aren't they? Like, inherently, they just... are so obsessive about their side and like to the point of respect it. To be totally honest, you can't say a bad word about Barcelona. Even when the levers were getting pulled, it was like, this is absolutely the right thing to be doing. We should be signing these aging players. When everybody knew, just focus on the rising graduates. Everybody was still like,
but I think
we're focusing on this. And Barca fans are going to be positive. They are going to back themselves as doing well in this Champions League. But like, I think the wider footballing audience still have an image of Barcelona under Xavi, where it was like, wow, this is a real shambles. Where I think Flick has come in there and rung serious changes to that playing style.
But I think we're now
very different, man.
It's not that. I feel like it's just a better version of what Xavi was trying to do. To be honest, I think Xavi was trying to go a bit more direct, go a little bit more press heavy. I think like.
Do you think?
Yeah, he was, but he just wasn't.
He wasn't allowed to do that. He just was from a Barcelona boy, in my opinion.
Well, in some ways, yeah, maybe he didn't take it far enough, or maybe he just wasn't as good a coach. Like he wasn't as good as doing it. Whereas Hansi Flick doesn't have that pressure, and comes from the background of like being in the German setup in the World Cup when they won it.
I think
doing
helps.
that with Bayern Munich as well.
Yeah,
coming into Bayern Munich also with not that much pressure because he was taking over them in a bit of a crisis moment and then taking them. Like I think Hansi Flick, he's the right manager for them. But I just still think there are issues with the squad. That's my main thing, and I think. The way that they're playing at the moment, I think like if they win, they could. I can't remember who they're playing first 3 games in the Champions League.
Monaco, Young Boys, Bayern Munich.
Okay, so they absolutely smash. They could smash the first 2 games, and suddenly people are like, okay, Barcelona serious contenders for this competition. Yeah, but I see that happening massively.
And their last 3,
and then it gets to January, and they've got no midfield. Yeah.
And their last 3: Dortmund, Benfica, Atalanta. Which is not
okay. That would be tougher. That'd be tougher. Yeah. I mean, by that point they may be through anyway. Yeah. So I don't know how. But I still think the expectation by October time could be one second Barcelona. Not only that, it could be like Real Madrid have had a bit of a slow start to the year, haven't they? Especially with the pressure on Mbappe as well and everything. Like it could come to October and people are like, oh yeah, I reckon Barcelona. I reckon they could be on for a treble here. Like, people, like the narrative changes so quickly with Barcelona,
and especially with now such a world-class star, especially to everybody now in Lamine Yamal. Like everyone expects he's the guy. Like last year, it kind of took everyone by shock that he was so good against PSG that he could step up to every single occasion. Whereas now it's known that this guy is the star gem in their team. Like he's the one. And
then all it takes is an injury to Yamal, and suddenly, oh my god, could you imagine? And it follows what's happened at Barcelona
literally,
in the last few years.
How many injuries have Barca had to young players who they've overplayed? Like Lamine Yamal's just come off a Euros where he got to the final. Like he's playing every single game now. Like there is a worry. It'll be the
we
same
can't sit here and just debate injuries. You
can't, but it is also something.
You never know.
But it is also
just all we're talking about here is just pure hypothetical based on injuries, isn't it? Like right now, as we sit here today, people are, in my opinion, not giving Barcelona enough respect for the quality of play week in, week out.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Which would make them underrated. If we go hypothetical, 6 of the players get injured and they fall apart.
Let's talk about City. If Haaland and Edison and Rodri fall off a cliff, they probably won't win it.
But we are doing hypotheticals based on situations we've seen them in the last few years.
But I think their squad
several times.
You picked up on their squad. I don't think their squad's as bad as you made out. Like, where do you see the glaring problems in their squad?
Defensive midfield, like definitely.
going far in the Champions League. I'm not going to argue with you on it because
I think across
I do
2 legs, I
mean.
think they could struggle against the top side.
They need Frankie to come back.
It has been a problem.
And all it takes as well, right? Say they don't finish in the top third, where you go through automatically. They play a team like, say, an Atalanta, who are struggled to play against, and you're out in the knockout stage, in the playoff stage.
I just think recently, the reason I would put them in the underrated bracket would just be because of they are seen as a bit of a calamity. Real Madrid have dominated the Champions League in recent years, and Barca off the field are a mess. But actually, right now, with what I see on the field in the first 5 games, I think it looks pretty good.
Okay.
And that's all I've got to base it on.
I think we all kind of agree in the same way. It's just we both view the outside.
Well, that's what this comes down to, isn't it? It's context around what you're seeing.
But
I think, I see where you guys are coming from. But I just think that if this form carries on, I think people will get carried away with Barca. I do think they will.
Okay, guys. Our next question. Rank which English team from 1 to 4 will make it the furthest in this year's Champions League.
Absolutely easy.
I'm going to say something a little bit crazy.
Chelsea won, is it?
Couldn't write any slower, could you, Mikey?
Nah. I'm just keeping true to form. Do you remember Team Talk? I'd take about 5 minutes longer than everyone else.
What's that show?
And then
No idea. Okay, reveal, guys, please. Okay, so you've got all the exact same.
Okay.
I've got Arsenal and
Based
Liverpool
on
the
what?
other way round.
Can I see?
Sorry, mate. It's Liverpool and Arsenal the other way round.
Based on what?
Based on one, I want to have a bit more of a conversation about this, and two,
please don't kick off the video.
and two, I think generally Liverpool. I've not been overly impressed by Arsenal so far this season. Like, one, I thought they were lucky against Aston Villa, where they should have lost at least 2-1 in the end. With Liverpool, I know the Forest is coming back off the Forest game, which is obviously that was reactive, and Arsenal just beat Spurs. Spurs who failed, who if they had some sort of clinicalness up top or in their game,
Didn't create chances.
or creating some sort of chance against an Arsenal deep block, like they could have done something here. I do think Arsenal. We're getting to a stage now where people are saying it's not longer about what's going to happen in the next 5 years. It's about now. Like, if we're going to win stuff, it's going to be this season or the next or the season after that. Or these players do start to think like, okay, what's the next move for me? Whereas Liverpool, there's a squad there who still have incredible talent who have gone far in the Champions League before. You think back to Trent, you think back to Salah, you think back to Virgil van Dijk, Alisson. I think their midfield issues in terms of not necessarily having a 6, they've kind of managed to make do with the Gravenberch. And I know, again, off the Forest game, Salah had a poor game. But these can just happen every now and again. Like, if you look back against, say, United, Liverpool looked immense. They've got a manager in Arne Slot who I think will end up doing a good job in kind of a knockout football, where he will analyse every team he's coming up against. He'll be used to that kind of that style as well of being able to know what team he wants to put out against what certain player he's coming up against.
Not a great Champions League record with Feyenoord.
No, he hasn't, but Feyenoord isn't like an incredible team that should be making the quarterfinals every year. Like, they are.
But some of those results.
But they are. You are right.
But if we're saying would you say, like, by putting Liverpool second, I assume you're saying that Liverpool are probably going to make the semi-finals, right? Because you expect City are one of the top 2 favourites. So
you're going through.
So we're saying, like most people will be saying right now that City probably make the final, if not at least the semis. I think the expectation. I think all 3, but that's what I mean. So like
Arsenal just comes up with Arsenal, and it literally does come down to who do they end up playing?
Do you not think Arsenal have been getting each season more and more defensively sound in terms of you've just been describing how they haven't been impressive, and I agree.
And I don't think Arsenal impressive.
I agree, but I'm saying like. That is true, but what do you need to go far in the Champions League? You need to be defensively sound. You need to not let chances go ahead. They've signed Calafiori. They've signed backups. They've got Raheem Sterling, experienced player, come in. I just look at their squad and think like they've got better than they were last season as a squad. And they've got more defensively sound. I think so.
Yeah. As a squad,
they can't
they have got better.
They've still got a deeper squad than they did last year.
And defensively,
they've got more certainty over who's playing in different positions. For example, Kai Havertz. I mean,
sure, but it's what. So we're saying
aside from Villa, aside from one half against Villa this season, they've looked a lot more experienced and a lot more solid.
They were good against Spurs, mate.
They were solid.
They were good.
North London derby away from home, missing players.
Very good.
No, you're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I'm not going to say they were ever going to give up any chance.
That's what you need to win a European Cup.
And also that they are probably the best set piece team in the world. Like,
that counts for something.
Okay,
huge.
yeah. And how did that work for them against Bayern Munich?
Well, yeah,
Didn't.
but
Like,
they
this is a
learn. But
different
they
level
learn
of
from
it.
that, don't they?
Sure,
They learn
I
from
mean,
that, and they're up against Thomas Tuchel.
They've
Like,
learned from that from we don't know yet. Like we'll see how that happens. Like they might have. They've come up against a very experienced European team.
Making.
Whereas Liverpool
changes,
have got that.
What changes have Liverpool made from the battering they took from Atalanta last season to where they are now?
A different manager.
So you think Slot
With less
is going to do a
experience.
better job than Klopp was doing towards the
not
back end
at
with
all.
that squad?
Well, I think
Yeah,
we
that's
can't
insane.
sit here and say that like Klopp's last year at Liverpool was the best of his entire career at all. Like no, like,
Exactly.
The
that's
Champions League.
exactly what
Sure,
we're saying.
but in the but in Europe,
European
they
knockout
were,
competition, they
last
struggled.
season they were struggling. Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
But,
you could make the argument that Liverpool are developing a more possession-based style of play, which is something that
Less risk.
Atalanta were actually putting them under immense pressure in the Champions League. I know it was a lot of.
They struggled against Napoli as well when they
not the
faced
Champions
them
League,
off
but
the
Europa League.
I
But
agree,
season
but
before.
those steps being taken are
Oh, yeah, they're
nowhere near
incremental, yeah.
comparatively to the steps that Arsenal are taking
Yeah.
over the
Oh,
last
agree.
12
Yeah,
months
yeah.
with the defensive solidity,
I
the additions they've made in the summer. I also think you've got to take into account how young that Arsenal team is
Yeah.
and how they're aging together. So I just don't
sure.
see any logical reasoning as to
No.
how you can have Liverpool ahead of Arsenal. in this
Essentially, what comes down
Yeah.
to, because this is
I
what it'll
agree.
come down to, which team they get given on the computer. I back Liverpool to beat the bigger team more than Arsenal.
But based off what?
Arsenal don't lose
Based off
these big
experience
games.
and players.
Can I,
They
okay,
don't lose these
can
big
I
games,
base off
Arsenal.
of a game they
Bayern
played?
Munich last season.
Let's-
They also
let's
beat
look at-
Man
let's
City
look at-
last season. They didn't lose to Man City.
And
Sure.
let's
last
look
season.
at this season. The North London derby for them is one of the highest pressure games.
Yeah, okay.
And we look at
But
it. They
I
go
mean,
there. They go
Spurs
there. They
look
go.
a bit
Zach, they
shaky
go there
though.
without their midfield. They go there without their midfield. And they go
Spurs
and
look
they go
shaky.
and they go and do a job. And those are the type of games. The North London derby,
But
that
Champions
atmosphere,
League
missing
football is a
players.
completely different
No, it's not.
game.
I
It
think
is,
I think the
man.
North
It's
London
so
derby is
different.
a similar type game to going away to Bayern Munich in the quarterfinal. Like that's what you can compare it to. And I looked at that team and I thought, God, they're solid. Even without Rice, even without Odegaard.
They're solid, 100%. But
Like, that's
but then
what
they
you
come
need
up
to
against,
go away in Europe
They
and
come
win
up
games.
against a Real Madrid, or like for instance, I'm backing Liverpool. Say both teams come up against Real Madrid. I back Liverpool to do better than
Liverpool can't beat
I'm not
Forest.
sure.
I think both teams probably lose to Real Madrid. Like that's probably the
I
fact.
think,
but
I just don't see the logical reason behind that. I think Arsenal are more defensively
But how many
sound.
times is the
I think
Champions
they
League?
score
How many
more
times is the
goals.
Champions League logical in some of these games? Like it does come down to like the experience they've had in these moments when they are 1-0 down to Bayern Munich away. Oh,
Yeah,
now
but I
who
think last
can they
Arsenal
go
had
from
big
to?
players,
Last
though.
time
They
Liverpool
have big
played Real
players.
Madrid at home, they threw away a 2-goal lead to ship 5 goals. Like,
Yes.
I think these moments are slightly overrated in our heads
think
because of
they
this
do matter, man.
experience around this Liverpool squad.
They do
They are
matter.
immensely experienced. There's no doubt about that. But it's not all been positive experience.
For sure.
And also
but
this-
can Liverpool not learn from that as well then?
Liverpool's
They can,
right,
but they're
like going
33-year-olds.
Yeah, Liverpool.
So
I was
it's
gonna
a
say-
squad for now.
32-year-olds.
Like it's
No,
like
Liverpool
Van
squad
Dijk
depth
right
is
now.
Liverpool squad depth. You've been arguing that for other teams. You have to look at it from a Liverpool point of view. If you're going to say Liverpool are going to do better than Arsenal, Liverpool squad depth is a problem this season. If they
Yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah,
injuries,
yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
speculating over other, Yamal gets injured for Barcelona. If you're looking at Salah and Van Dijk injured,
Sure.
what happens? I mean,
Sure.
it's
Yeah,
a nightmare.
huge.
I mean,
It's a
yeah,
nightmare.
but then what happens? Like Saka gets injured. Like okay,
I think they've got to cover
Sterling-
their Raheem Sterling
Sterling-
comes in and
Sterling.
covers that.
a big
It's
difference,
by
mate.
no means is Sterling a direct
Huge
replacement.
difference,
Yeah, of
that.
course.
I don't know.
They
I
don't
think
score a
that's.
goal.
I think that's just a trauma response, Zach. I think Sterling's going to be a different beast for Arsenal
Yeah.
over the course of
I
the
agree.
season. I think
Yeah,
he will
look-
be.
The
I
fall
mean,
off Salah.
sure, I'd
Salah
love to see it.
Salah
Sure.
to Chiesa is a bigger fall off than Saka to Sterling.
I don't know actually. I think
Very
Chiesa's
close,
all
very
right. I think
close.
it's close, but either way, I just think this Arsenal team has been trending upwards for so long.
It's the second
and
best
also
team.
we haven't even spoken about Arne Slot. Like I don't think there is no way that the Liverpool hierarchy are expecting that much from Arne Slot in his first season
In Europe especially.
in Europe as well, because priority is obviously getting top 4. I think that's going to have to take precedent over everything. It's a longer season. Yeah, it's a big job for Arne Slot. I think it's a lot of pressure to be like, yeah, you got to make a Champions League semi-final. I think they'll probably make the quarters, but yeah, I agree. I think that they don't have as many. They don't have as many like different weapons, and we haven't seen enough of what Slot can do with this Liverpool team to deal with different with different scenarios. Whereas we've kind of now seen it with Arteta. Arteta has had Arsenal playing in all sorts of different ways to deal with different teams. We've not seen it from Slot yet. Like we've seen him come unstuck against Nottingham Forest after a perfect first 3 games. That's the first time we've seen adversity. Like we're yet to see how they're going to bounce back from that. We're yet to see whether there's an adaptation to the way they play. We're yet to see, Gravenberch. Amazing first 3 games as well, but we're yet to see like 3 months of him as a Premier League level number 6. Like there's a lot of question marks there, whereas with Arsenal it's like there's not really many question marks anymore.
Sure. I mean, we'll see, won't we? Okay, our next question: who's going to be the biggest flop?
I'm gonna have to have a look at who's in it again. I'm gonna have to have a look at this big old league table because it's a lot.
Okay, guys, time to reveal who we think is going to be the biggest flop this season in the Champions League. I've gone Arsenal, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern.
We've all got an argument.
Here we go.
It's time to annoy some people.
I've done a bit about Arsenal. I can go back onto it a bit. PSG every year.
I always put PSG. I love to put PSG every single year. I like to put PSG because I like to watch that project fail. It gives me a massive pleasure rush when it when I see
very
them,
well spoken. Very well
them,
put there.
Like crumbling in front of my eyes, and it happens every year. So I think that form will continue. Massive expectations on Luis Enrique and that side in France. Huge amounts of money, as ever, knocking about in that squad. And I think they don't have the goal scorer to do the damage this season. Without Kylian Mbappe, fine. I still think they'll do damage to the French league. Bradley Barcola looks absolutely sensational at the start of the season. I'm sure Ousmane Dembele will score goals too, domestically. But on the European stage, we're yet to see it from Ousmane Dembele. He's flat to deceive on multiple occasions now. There's been huge moments in huge games where he hasn't stepped up to the plate. I just don't see enough goals from that forward line if Asensio has to play through the middle, or if it's Kolo Muani, depending on how badly Gonzalo Ramos comes back from that horrendous injury. The forward line is suspect. There's high pressure on the club from within and its own fan base. Every year, PSG gets spoken about as, could they push deep? Could they win this thing? They won't. They'll go out of the quarterfinals in some horrendous fashion at a rubbish side, or against a side that have a tenth of the budget but play excellent football, counter-attack. They'll probably go out at the quarterfinals against Leipzig.
But does anyone think PSG are going to...
They do.
All
their players think they are the bollocks.
Well.
Do they? Do the fans think? The PSG fans think they're going to win?
I
think that people have lost faith in the project. Even from the... I just look at it and I just think no one's expecting PSG to win the Champions League.
Especially now without Mbappe. I think.
No way.
I think.
You don't get rid of Mbappe, then go, we might win the league. There's no way.
And there's actually an argument maybe for them to be the underrated one.
100%. Because there's pressure off with Kylian Mbappe.
They're kind of playing like the football is a lot more equal now and a lot more balanced.
I hear this every season.
But there's none of them.
Literally
no Neymar. No Neymar.
I can promise you, if you go back and listen, if you can go back and listen to last season's team talk, the exact same thing was being said.
No, but
they
now
play a
it is
different style of
literally
football
like,
under Enrique. They pop it around. They do that.
They are
rubbish.
Like they've got rid of Agate, who ended up not being that good fit for them. They've brought in
João Neves has gone
who's
off like a rocket, man.
Barcola's
so
having
good
in Liga.
No way.
Barcola's having
4
a season
assists in his first 2 games.
Like they are starting to really come together. I think
Barcola putting it together in Liga.
He's a fantastic player. Mbappe looked pretty good, didn't he? And that worked out. I'm not saying they're the exact same players.
Yeah, it didn't work out, did it? Because he never won the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, they got to the final though. They did get to the final. But
PSG. But you've just said PSG have never won a Champions League.
Yeah,
I'm talking about like Bayern Munich. What's Bayern Munich won? 6 Champions Leagues?
Yeah, a lot.
I think it's 6. I just wanted to check that, but I think it's 6 Champions Leagues. So there's pressure there. They've lost the league to Leverkusen last year, embarrassingly. They've brought in Harry Kane for big money and won nothing. They've got Vincent Kompany, Burnley's relegated manager. There is pressure on that side to perform. Bayern Munich can't just win the league this year and then get knocked out in the quarterfinals of the Champions League and it's all back to normal, is it? Like, that's not enough for the Bayern Munich manager, and for that reason, I think pressure on Kompany. We spoke about it a little bit earlier. The new signings aren't pedigree players that have won it before.
Is there pressure? Like, it is Vincent Kompany
in
charge.
Bayern Munich.
Sure, it's Bayern Munich. But I think the pressure is league. I think the pressure is like that's it for them. It's like get in the league.
I don't
try
think
and go as far as you
that's
can.
That's never been enough for Bayern Munich. It's always had to be the Champions
League. Until they
League.
lost the league, it wasn't enough.
Yeah, but winning the league back this year is is the expected. That's the expected. They're expected to do that. If they don't do that, it's a disaster. Whereas I think like Champions League, okay, it might not be like we're guaranteed to win it, but they're gonna Bayern Munich will expect to be in the semi-finals, and I don't think they'll get there.
And I think, I think you're right. I do think that with Bayern Munich, it's kind of going back to our arguments before. It's like, yeah, there's so much pressure, and also like those experienced players, the likes of like Neuer and Müller and stuff, that they're kind of carrying that disappointment. It's quite a heavy load to carry as the most senior people at the club, really. Like regardless of like manager or who's above the manager, they've been there longer than anyone. It's a lot of pressure for them to carry, and for them to like rear the changing room to win game after game and focus on the Champions League. So I do see it with Bayern Munich, and I think I've gone for the Rogas shout, to be honest. But Real Madrid, I just think every year if Real Madrid don't win it, then it's always classed as a flop. And I think there's huge pressure on them now, like especially after a slightly slow start to the season. Mbappe in the team, this is going to be the preeminent force in world football over the next 10 years. Real Madrid, they've got amazing options all over the pitch. Carlo Ancelotti, of course. Amazing Champions League manager, but I do still just see, I do still see them coming unstuck. I think
it's like them going out in the semis, right? So they're making semis to go out. Is that a failure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the general consensus,
if Real Madrid don't make the final, then it's a failure. And I see, I see them coming up against Man City again this season and coming unstuck against them again. I think they were
drawn 3 seasons in a row.
Yeah, why not? It's the Champions League.
But then every time,
it always
it's
happens.
Just Real Madrid,
it always happens.
There's something
but even
about
if Real Madrid come up against, I see Arsenal going to the Bernabeu and getting something. I do think this Real Madrid team can be got at. And it does kind of go against a lot of logic, but I just think that Real Madrid, like over 2 legs, that there's always going to be something. They're always going to have vulnerable moments, and the reason why they've been so successful, well, one of the reasons why they've been so successful in European competition, not just under Ancelotti, but has been their ability to, just win a game in 10 minutes. Like they are able to do that. And it is amazing how they keep on doing that. Like, don't get me wrong. Like they've got amazing form for it over the last few years for just not being particularly good for 70 minutes and then being amazing for 20 minutes. Like just exploiting whatever weakness the opposition has. I'm particularly thinking about that PSG game a few years ago, that Benzema season. They are amazing at doing that, but it's not. But it still means that there's 70 minutes where they can be vulnerable. Like, look at the Champions League final this year. Like, they were up against a pretty poor Borussia Dortmund side, one that scraped. They won it, but they weren't the better team. Like, Dortmund were the better team. But that's what I mean. Like, how long can you be the second best team in a tie and win it every single time? I think the law of averages says that you will eventually come unstuck, and I think this is a season where Real Madrid might just come unstuck.
Obviously, I went Arsenal. Kind of like what I said last time, and just because the expectation is minimum semi-final, minimum now, really, for what we're talking about. Like everyone rates them so much.
I think it is. I think they've got to get to a semi.
I don't think they beat Bayern, which they obviously didn't last time. Don't think they beat Real Madrid. Don't think they beat Man City. Don't think they. I reckon if they played Atletico Madrid, they'd find that really difficult. I reckon if they played PSG, which they are playing them during the league stage, we'll see what happens there. I think that's going to be a tough game. I think there's a few of them where, like, the second it becomes 2 legs, and like, I just don't see them pushing it past it to make it that far. And they might make it to the quarters, but a quarter is a failure for an Arsenal team of this stature now. For what we say is one of the best top 5 teams in the world. Like, they've got to be making it to the semi-finals, if not the final nowadays. And I just don't see that happening really at all.
I would just argue again, similar to what Joe, like, Arsenal have never won it. That's why I'd always say Bayern Munich, and I agree, Real Madrid.
Yeah,
there's
sure,
just that more pressure.
like,
you're talking about teams that
Arsenal do need to win something. Like, they're talking about, like, this is one of the best projects that's ever happened. They've not won a thing apart from an FA Cup. That wasn't even Arteta's players.
Yeah, but
he's got rid of all of them now, and he's brought in this whole new section. Like, they do need to do something eventually.
I think you could be right in that Arsenal focus more on the Premier League as well, maybe. I think that would be smarter for them.
And who knows what by that point as well, with the league running come by the quarter-final stage.
Yeah,
like,
things
could be a lot more intense. Okay, guys, let's do our last question now. The final. Who are going to be in the final, and which team will win it?
Seems like his answer.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
2, 1, reveal.
Here we go.
City PSG.
Oh,
City
you're
Bayern,
so boring.
City Real Madrid.
You say sub. You say City Bayern?
I've said Real Madrid will win it in R1. Okay, Mr. No Madrid or Bayern.
No Madrid.
PSG.
PSG. Just kind of echoing. I mean, I'm just going to go for it. Like, I just think PSG. Yeah, they've started the season really well. They do look. I think they do look a more cohesive team under Luis Enrique. And once you're in the knockouts, anything can happen. This is a man who's won the Champions League before. Yes, I know he had MSN, but still, I do think this PSG team could do damage. I think they've got one of the best midfields in Europe. I think their defence is a lot better than it was before. I think Donnarumma, amazing season last year in Liga. I think he had
not great in the Champions League.
Not great in the Champions League, but he's had form in tournaments before. I think in general he has turned a corner in his career. There were a couple of shaky seasons, but I think he has turned a corner. I think this PSG team can do damage, and ultimately it just comes down to over 2 legs. And I think if they were to get a relatively easy draw and then play, say, an Arsenal in the semi-finals, I think across 2 legs that would be a pretty. I think
I'll play them in 3 weeks.
We'll find out.
I'm not sure.
But I just think I think across 2 legs, you never know. I think there's some really, really top players in that side. I think they can do a lot of damage. I'm speaking very generally here, but I just think that midfield is absolutely sensational.
Vitinha,
like Fabian Ruiz,
Arsenal,
Vitinha,
PSG,
Zaire Emery, Joao Neves.
Toast fest.
I don't know.
We'll
see.
I don't know. I think they're evenly matched, and it will come to, they'll be a little bit lucky to get to the final, but that's what I'm saying. They'll get to the final.
But you need that sometimes. I don't think Borussia Dortmund in the final last year, no one called that. Especially when they finished second.
And to be fair, they did beat PSG to get there, but
in the end,
the chokers,
perennial
chokers. It's a chain that is hanging around their neck, and they just won't be able to get rid of it. PSG, I'm afraid.
I like the shout though. I do like the shout.
Yeah, I've just got to put them out.
Bit of fun.
I've got to put them out there.
It's a fun shout, but
I've got Bayern Munich. More hope than.
That's more rogue of anything. Vincent Kompany, a Champions League final. Come on.
Well, they've just got the pedigree.
What pedigree?
They've got the pedigree throughout the team.
Who's won anything apart from the old guard there?
The old guard are there. The old guard are there.
I guess Koeman is there.
Kimmich,
Koeman, Neuer, Muller, Gnabry.
Gnabry's not.
Was Sane there?
Gnabry's not in the old guard.
No, but Sane has won.
Gnabry did win it though. He did, in 2020. He did win it.
Sane was there in 2020.
Sane.
Yeah, Leroy Sane.
I don't think he was.
He won the Champions League.
Actually.
He
went just after. That was the season that
I've
he
said
was
it a few
injured.
times.
It's more hope than anything else.
I don't see Bayern Munich having enough to get there. Vincent Kompany got relegated with Burnley and is then going to go to a Champions League final.
I think they're too defensively suspect, Bayern.
No chance for me. Yeah, that's
why.
What
crazy managers have ended up winning it before.
Not many.
Unexpected.
Flick.
Actually, not that many really. Normally the manager's pretty good.
Your boy.
What Di Matteo?
Yeah, Di Matteo is the most rogue manager to have ever won any European competition.
What's he doing now?
I'm not saying they're going to win it. I'm saying City are going to win it. I'm just saying they get to the final, and a few rogue managers.
And it can happen. Yeah, you're right. Look at Terzic last season under thing, and they do have the players. They've got Harry Kane. I know you mentioned about not having the trophies, but he is a good player. Elise is a world beater when he's fit.
I went.
Go on, what did you go?
Mine was quite classic. Man City, Real Madrid, but that Real Madrid would win it. Ooh. It's just when it's there in front of you, man. You just got to say.
Can I just say? That's why I've gone the same, but I've gone with City winning it. You can give your little cool shouts of who you think's going to win it. We're gonna. But
we've all got City winning it. All of us have got City.
Yeah, but this is just the only answer that actually makes sense. If you had to bet, if you were to go into a betting shop now, you two are not putting PSG.
I don't reckon Madrid make the semi-finals.
Maybe not. But
the semi-finals. Wow, and you didn't have them as your flop?
No, because PSG exists. I mean, PSG might crash out pre-group.
One thing, you're saying that Real Madrid won't make the semi-finals.
Real Madrid going out in the quarterfinals is a bigger flop.
That would be a huge flop, man. That would be crazy.
With that squad, with
Mbappe
coming in.
I will say this, I think Liverpool have got one of the toughest groups, haven't they? There's a possibility that they get a really tough draw in the next round as a result of that, but that's by the by because we haven't.
Yeah, that's a very different question. They're not making the final. Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, that is our final. Let us know in the comments below what you think, any other decisions, which comment on who you thought won today's video.
Not many likes on my name this episode.
JCC.
I don't know. I think I dropped off. I dropped off bad.
I did a few just to try and get some arguments in there. JCC, where can the lovely people at home check you out?
You can find me at JCC, World of JCC on all socials. Thanks for having me, Zach. Thank you.
Mate. Thank you for coming on. Joseph Thomlinson, where can they see you?
I just searched my name, Joe Thomlinson.
Everyone's channels will be linked below. Michael McCubbin, The Lowdown.
Just The Lowdown. Yeah, I don't have a personal channel, but The Lowdown on Sky Sports Premier League YouTube channel. Every Thursday you can catch me there.
Amazing. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Smash the like button, leave a comment, like which comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on Friday. Bye.